Hey everyone, welcome back. This is Sean Smith, the Pink Caddy Coach, and this is video number 3 of the Breakthrough series. Hopefully you enjoyed videos number 1 and 2 if you watched them. If you didn't watch them and you want to, there are links that you can get to them on this page. But in this video, we're going to talk about something that is so crucial, and I could argue that it's the most important piece of your personal development, because if you don't get the most out of yourself, if you don't find the way to be the most productive that you can possibly be, then it really doesn't matter how much skill set you have. It doesn't matter that you get over all your fears. It doesn't matter that you stay motivated. It doesn't matter that you know how to set goals. It doesn't matter about so many of those other things if you yourself are not working properly. And one of the things that I just thought of right now that's not even on this on the flip chart, so I want to get to it so I don't forget, is you've got to take care of your energy. Being an entrepreneur, working in your Mary Kay business is hard enough if you're fighting your body. So you've got to make sure that your energy is conducive to you playing as big a game in the world as you want to play, because if your energy is working against you, then you're just basically making the uphill climb more uphill and more difficult. So for some of you that might mean exercising. For some of you that might mean eating better. For some of you that might mean slowing down, more prayer time, more meditation, more walks. Whatever that means for you could be different based on who you are, but make sure that you are controlling your energy and creating the energy that you need so that you're not a victim of whatever energy you do or don't have in your body. And that's the way most people live their lives is, I don't have a lot of energy today, so I'm not gonna fill in the blank. I'm not gonna work my business because I don't feel like it. Well, when you're a victim of your energy and your energy is dependent on all these other things that are going on around you that you don't control, then your success in life in general, your success in Mary Kay, is really not up to you. It's up to all these other forces. And I don't want that to be the case for you. So really make sure that you control your energy. So let's get into personal productivity. I've been studying a lot over the last couple years about ways to get more out of yourself. And so much of this is depending on you just understanding your own human nature. For you personally, but also just for us as humans. We do certain things naturally. We all sabotage ourselves in some way, right? And so part of this also is that you are gentle on yourself and that you're more of an encourager of yourself rather than a discourager of yourself. And truth be told, most people in Mary Kay, I think most people in society, especially entrepreneurs, are really tough on themselves. And even though mentally they might think that that's going to get the most out of them by cracking that whip, in reality, that's not the way to get the most out of you. So be gentle to yourself. I want you to commit that you're willing to be gentle to yourself. In fact, if you're willing to commit that, then write it in the comment section right here on this page. So the first thing, let's break a myth. And this is especially critical for all of you women out there. The first piece here and the myth that we absolutely must break, and the pattern that you have to stop if you want to get the most out of yourself, is multitasking. We think that multitasking is this sign of, I don't know, I want to say nobility, but it's like a sign of honor, like a badge of honor, like I'm such a good multitasker. No, you're not. And it's literally, physically, biologically impossible for the brain to focus on any more than one thing at a time. So at best, you can shift your focus back and forth. But when you shift your focus back and forth, you're losing out on productivity. And there are many, many studies around that. It's kind of like trying to ride, 4 horses all at once. You can't do that. You can only be on one horse at a time. And while you're on that one horse, the other 3 horses aren't doing anything. They're not moving anywhere. And it's better for you to stay on that one horse and ride that to completion rather than a few steps there, then get off and jump on another horse and a few steps and get off and jump on another horse and a few steps. Now, I know most people would say, well, of course I wouldn't try to ride 4 horses at once. But in their lives, they try to multitask all the time. Now, certain things aren't that big of a deal. Like if you are, doing the dishes and listening to something like positive programming at the same time, because this is kind of like a mindless activity and this is feeding your brain. Those kinds of things are not that big of a deal. But if you're trying to write an email and make this phone call and structure something in your business or handle administrative stuff, anything that takes cognitive activity has to be done on its own. Otherwise, you're really going to be damaging your output. You're going to be damaging not only your productivity, but you're going to be damaging the value of your work, right? Your performance is going to go down. So when you're multitasking, you're not doing any of these things as well as you could if you were just doing it once. You're going to make more mistakes because your brain's not going to stay focused. And our poor brains are just like they're just being pulled all over the place with all of our distractions, right? It's already difficult enough for your brain to weed out all the things that the world distracts it with. Don't make it harder by trying to multitask. So I want you to be committed to being more productive than you are multitasking, right? And I mentioned this word earlier, completion is better than perfection. One of the reasons that we either multitask or we procrastinate is because we're trying to be perfect. And if we can't be perfect, as soon as we feel like we're not going to be perfect, then we'll stop. Or we'll turn to something else where we can feel like we can be more perfect, or we can get more done over here, or we can get more rewards over here, or acknowledgement, or whatever the case is. Perfectionism, you all know this, I'm sure, perfectionism is like a disease of the mind, and it's definitely a productivity killer. So I want you to say, how can I complete this and get it in motion, whatever this is, whatever that task is. I want you to be more focused on getting things done than getting them started. Because the more things that you have in motion, the more distractions you have on your brain. And the more that you'll be multitasking, even energetically. You're trying to hold on to all these different projects in your brain, which is, again, like riding 4 horses at once, right? So be more focused on completion. And the big question you can ask yourself is, what's the one thing? What's the one thing that I can be doing right now? What's the one thing that you can be doing in your Mary Kay business today that will move it forward the most? What's the one thing you can be doing today in your life in general, Mary Kay related or not, that's going to give you the biggest satisfaction at the end of the day? That you really lived your life to its fullest today. What's the one thing? And when you think about the one thing that will move the needle the most in your life today, then commit to that and complete that. And so I want you to start thinking of your tasks as these little, energetic competitors, right? They're competing for your energy. Because each task is requiring a certain amount of finite energy from you. And if you only have a certain amount of energy in your body, you've got to be really discerning about where you're going to give it, right? Where you're going to give it out. Are you going to give your energy here, here, or here? And most people are just careless with their own energy. They're careless with their focus. And so they allow all these distractions in their life, etc. Don't be careless with your life. So what's the one thing that you can do in Mary Kay, as a parent, as a spouse, whatever it is? What's the one thing right now that you can do? Now, when you start focusing on all these different tasks and activities as energetic competitors, then you'll realize that everything becomes a trade-off. So I want you to really know the trade-offs. right? Let's say you have 3 things to do. One of them will move the needle the most. It'll give you the most amount of results. The other one, is kind of like the middle ROI, the middle return on your investment of time, energy, or money. And then one of them is something that won't give you much of anything, right? Obviously, you should do the one that's going to give you the most back. But understand, if you're not conscious of this, it'll be easier to do one of the other 2, maybe because it's just an easier task, or there's not as much at risk, there's not as much to lose, whatever. But if you give your energy over here, then you are trading that energy for where it should be spent. So there's always these trade-offs. And what I find is that when people become aware of the idea that if I give my focus and attention and energy and investment over here, then that means I'm saying no to this thing over there. And that thing over there is more important than this one over here. Then it's easier to say no to the easy and say yes to the more valuable, right? So always focus on and be making your decisions according to trade-offs, because that's really what it's all about. You're trading your time, you're trading your energy for something in return. And what's the one thing that's going to give you the biggest return on that? And then the final thing in this first discussion here is to enforce your boundaries. Don't have boundaries. Everybody has boundaries, but most people don't enforce their boundaries. And if you don't enforce a boundary, then you don't have a boundary, right? It's like having a rule with no consequences. Try to give a rule to kids where there's no consequence. And the first time they break the rule, nothing happens. Well, then you have no rule. Your boundaries are only as powerful as the amount that you enforce them. And what I find is that this is always an internal game, right? Most boundary issues are internal. If you don't have the discipline, don't have the, the internal awareness to say, no, I'm not going to do that because right now I need to spend my time on this, then everybody else will start disrespecting your boundaries as well. So I need you to check in with your own enforcement of your own boundaries and see if you are enforcing them. Now, here's the deal. Nobody can cross your boundaries without your permission, especially in Mary Kay. Maybe you can come up with some crazy, not that it's crazy like it won't ever happen, but maybe you can come up with some example where somebody might enforce your boundaries, barge in on you when the door is locked or whatever. But for the most part in Mary Kay, the boundaries issue is yours. It's because you're not enforcing your own, right? And if you're not enforcing your own boundaries, then all of this just goes away. And sometimes it's not easy to say, listen, I only have 5 minutes. Or sometimes not easy to not answer the phone when somebody that you know is calling. But it's imperative if you want to get the most out of yourself. So practice enforcing those boundaries. You can start simple, right? You can start with enforcing a small one, and then you can go to a larger one, then you can go to more, right? Don't try to just enforce everything out of the gate because that'll be difficult for you, and it might freak other people out. But continue to build upon the enforcement of your boundaries. That's incredibly important. The second thing I want to talk about under personal productivity is for you to learn your strategies. Now, what I mean by that is that every one of us has strategies for the way that we live life, right? And strategies are synonymous with patterns or recipes. We all have a pattern for success. We all have a pattern for sabotage. We all have a recipe for anger. We have a recipe for irritation. We have a recipe for success. We have a recipe for recovery. When we fall down, how do we get back up? We all have strategies, and we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of strategies that relate to your personal achievement, that relate to your success. So I want you to start learning those strategies so that you can set yourself up to win. If you don't know what irritates you, if you don't know what stops you, if you don't know the recipe that puts you in a situation where you retreat or you sabotage or you say forget all of this. I'm going to go quit, right? Or I'm going to take my ball and go home, or whatever it is. If you don't know that about yourself, then you don't have the control that you need to create the life of your dreams. So this takes some digging, but it's worth it. And I'm going to do a program here, I don't know when we'll start it, that goes a lot deeper into personal productivity and strategies specifically. But for now, I just want you to think about what are my patterns, what are my recipes, and identify so that you can set yourself up to succeed. And part of setting yourself up to succeed, one of the biggest parts actually, is this next piece, to protect yourself from your weaknesses. So a lot of us know our weaknesses. Now, I don't love the label weaknesses, but it's the way most people talk, so I'll use it. A lot of us know what our weaknesses are, but we just try to plow through them. We try to just work through it. We try to power our way beyond our weaknesses because we think that means that we're actually strong if we can go through our weaknesses, or we're more noble, or we're more, spiritual, or whatever the case is, if we can just plow through these weaknesses. Well, that's always going to be difficult because it's easier to water the flowers than it is to keep cutting the weeds, right? And if all you do is focus on the weeds, at some point in time, the flowers are probably going to die. So those flowers are your strengths. Those flowers are the things that you really like to do. And it's better for you to delegate your weaknesses to other people who don't have those same weaknesses so that you can stay in your lane, so that you can do that one thing that's really going to make a difference for you. Please don't be the type of person that is trying to plow through all of your weaknesses, because inside of that, a lot of times there's guilt, or there's shame, or there's some form of self-punishment, like you deserve to make life miserable because you're a bad person, or because you did something, in the past, and you're kind of beating yourself up over it. None of that is going to actually help you succeed. So protect yourself from your weaknesses so that you can set yourself up for success, especially when you understand your strategies. And another big piece of this is for you to commit to self-care. I know for women especially, this is difficult. It feels like you're being selfish. It feels like you're not taking care of other people. You're not really fulfilling, that motherly role that you have, the motherly instinct that most women have. But if you don't take care of yourself, you're not going to have enough in you to not just take care of other people, but to get out of you what you want to get out of you in terms of your productivity and your achievement and building your Mary Kay business, and all of those things are going to be stuck inside of you because you're not protecting the vessel. You're not protecting your body, your temple. So self-care is not selfish. Self-care is about self-love. And actually, I can make the argument that not caring for yourself is the highest form of selfishness. Because if you don't care for yourself, then you're not going to be as good as you could be in your other roles. You're not going to be the mom you could be. You're not going to be the wife you could be, or the husband or the father. You're not going to be the consultant that you could be. You're not going to be as good as you possibly can in all the other roles if you don't take care of yourself. So shame on you for doing that. That's the most selfish thing you can do, is not keep your cup full. Now that requires boundaries, but it's critical for you to really live not only a successful life, but for you to live a fulfilled life where you are actually enjoying the journey. So make self-care a commitment for you. Otherwise, what's the point? What's the point in building a fantastic business and your body gives out on you? What's the point? At some point in time, you're going to look back and go, wow, I really wish I would have taken care of myself. I wish I would have taken care of my body. I wish I would have taken care of my energy, taken care of my heart, taken care of my joy. That's why you're in business anyway, to be free and to live life the way you want to live it. So make sure that you're caring for your temple, caring for your vessel, so that you can enjoy this journey. All right, the final piece here under productivity is, now this is the magic bullet, right? A lot of people are looking for that magic bullet. What's the missing piece for most people? This is it right here. The magic bullet, as close to a magic bullet as there ever could be, is accountability. The bottom line is we are not wired to get the most out of ourselves. We're not wired like that unconsciously. We need outside help. We need accountability. If we don't have accountability, then for most of us, we're going to severely underachieve. Now, some people don't underachieve all that much. They can, on some level, hold themselves accountable and get a lot out of them, but nobody can get the most out of themselves just by trying to hold themselves accountable. So we need a different level of accountability, and what I've found is the two best forms are public and financial. What does that mean? Public accountability is when you tell other people, whether it's on a Facebook group or a group message, or you just make an announcement that you're committing to something. Now you're committing in public. And a misconception around accountability is that other people have the ability to hold you accountable. No, they don't. Nobody can hold you accountable, but you will hold yourself accountable more if you've made this public declaration. So don't think that you need somebody else to hold you accountable. It's like, you can't hire somebody else to do your sit-ups. I think Jim Rohn or Zig Ziglar said that. You also can't have somebody else hold you accountable, but you can hold yourself accountable in front of other people, and it's way easier for most of us to do that. And then financial accountability is gigantic as well. Put some money on the line. My favorite form of accountability is both public and financial. Whenever I'm really serious about something and I want to commit to something, I will usually make a Facebook post. And it'll say something like, over the next 30 days, I will finish this project, or I will work out 5 days a week, or I will not eat any processed sugar, or I will, whatever it is. I will make a series of commitments on Facebook. And then I always say something like, and if I don't, then I'm going to send a $50 check, or the most I've ever done is a $500 check to the first 20 people that comment on this post. I did that one time, and it was around writing 2 books in 2014. And because I had literally $10,000 on the line, I got those books done. And it was amazing how I didn't even consider the sabotage when I had $10,000 on the line publicly. So you don't have to put out thousands and thousands of dollars. I've only done that once. But you've got to put out some level of consequence. And what I've found is that the financial consequences just really get more out of us, right? And there's something else about financial consequences. It's because, we hold money in a very special way. Now, many of you might not be money driven, but money has its own unique meaning for most of us. And most of us don't like to lose money, right? And so when you put money on the line like that, it's just easier for you to push through any of the doubts, fears, obstacles, challenges, whatever that comes up, because you got money on the line, right? And we don't like losing that money. But the other thing about money is it's some form of investment. And when you invest in something, you're much more likely to use that thing. Now, money is not the only form of investment. There's actually 3 forms of investment. The 3 forms of investment are money, time, and energy, right? When you invest your time, energy, and money, when you invest all of them, that's going to be the biggest form of accountability because you've invested so much into something. But when you don't pay for something, you just don't take it as, it's not as valuable to you because you didn't pay for it, right? Your brain knows that when you invest in something that it means that it's important. That's the second I here. So investment equals importance. When you invest your time, energy, and or money into something, you're sending the message to your brain that this is important. Otherwise, you wouldn't have invested the dollar amount, or you wouldn't have invested, clearing your time on your calendar and creating boundaries. You wouldn't have done that for something that's not really important, right? So investment of time, energy, or money equals to your mind importance. And importance equals implementation. So these are the 3 I's that I want you to think about when it comes to accountability and getting the most out of yourself. Investment leads to importance, which leads to implementation. So you're much more likely to implement and engage in something when you've invested time, energy, and money. And you're much more likely to get everything accomplished when you've got this public financial accountability. And when you do accountability, it's really important that you only set yourself up to win by committing to things that you can control. So in other words, in Mary Kay, I don't want you to commit to being a director by seminar because you don't control that. In order for you to become a director, if you're not right now, in order for you to become a director, you need a lot of people to say yes. You need a lot of people to buy things, right? You need other people's decisions. And if you need other people's decisions, then you're not in control. But instead of you committing to becoming a director or committing to becoming a national by 2020 or whatever the case is, instead of you committing to those things that are out of your control, commit to your activities. So you can commit to speaking to 300 people between now and seminar. And ideally, talking to 300 people will probably get you to a director, but you shouldn't commit to the outcome if you don't control it. Commit to the activity that you can control. I'll get into more of that on the next video with goal setting, but when it comes to putting up consequences, you just got to make sure that you're able to and willing to actually do those activities. So hopefully this has been beneficial, these 3 components of getting more out of yourself. I'd love to hear your feedback, so please put a comment here on this page. And I would love if you're willing to commit to something right here on this page publicly and put some financial consequences around it. That is how I know, and this is how you would know, that you're really serious about that next step. And don't do something that scares you to the point that it shuts you down, but do something that actually get your heart rate going a little bit, right? It shouldn't be easy for you to commit to something publicly, because if it's easy, that means that it's not stretching you, right? So I will publicly applaud and acknowledge any of you that have the courage to commit to something, whether it's huge or small, doesn't matter. Commit to something publicly and put a financial consequence on it and put a date on it right here on this page, so that I know that you are really committed to getting the most out of yourself and getting the most out of your Mary Kay business. I'm Sean Smith, and hopefully this video has been valuable to you. Our next video will be talking about goal setting and a program that I'm going to roll out that takes all of this stuff to a much deeper level. I'll talk to you soon.